Le Corbusier was a Swiss-French architect, designer, urbanist, writer, and also painter, who was famous for being one of the pioneers of what is called modern architecture. He was a pioneer in studies of modern high design and was dedicated to providing better living conditions for the residents of crowded cities. His career spanned 5 decades, with his buildings constructed throughout Central Europe, India, Russia, and America. During the World War I, he was a teacher and he also worked on theoretical architectural studies, using modern techniques. Among these was his project for the Domino House, 1914–1915. This design became the foundation for most of his architecture for the next 10 years. His real name is Charles Edward Jeannet, and he adopted Le Corbusier in 1920, and altered from his maternal grandfather's name as a pseudonym, reflecting his belief that anyone could reinvent himself. Some architectural historians claim that this pseudonym translates as the raven-like one. Between 1918 and 1922, Le Corbusier built nothing, concentrating his efforts on purist theory and painting. In 1922, Le Corbusier and Jeannet opened a studio in Paris. For a number of years, French officials had been unsuccessful in dealing with the squalor of the growing Parisian slums, and he sought efficient ways to house large number of people in response to the urban housing crisis. He believed that his new modern architectural forms would provide a new organizational solution that would raise the quality of life for the lower classes. The villas was such a project that called for large blocks of cell-like individual apartments stacked one on top of the other, with plans that included a living room, bedrooms, and kitchens, as well as a garden terrace. It was Le Corbusier's Villa Savoie that briefly summed up his 5 points of architecture that he had elucidated in one of his books, which he had been developing throughout the 1920s. First, Le Corbusier lifted the bulk of the structure off the ground, supporting it by pilotis, reinforced concrete stilts. These pilotis, in providing the structural support for the house, allowed him to elucidate his next 2 points: a free facade, meaning a non-supporting walls that could be designed as the architect wished, and an open floor plan, meaning that the floor space was free to be configured into rooms without concern for the supporting walls. The second floor of the Villa Savoie includes long strips of ribbon windows that allow unencumbered views of the large surrounding yard, and which constitute the 4th point of his system. The 5th point was the roof garden to compensate for the green area consumed by the building and replacing it on the roof. A ramp rising from ground level to the 3rd-floor roof terrace allows for an architectural promenade through the structure. The white tubular railing recalls the industrial ocean liner, an aesthetic that Le Corbusier much admired, as if to put an exclamation mark after Le Corbusier's homage to modern industry. The driveway around the ground floor, with its semicircular path, measures the exact turn radius of a 1927 Citroën car.
The High Court of Justice is a part of the complex created by Le Corbusier in Chandigarh, India. This building was built in 1956. The High Court is a linear block with the main facade toward the piazza. It has a rhythmic arcade created by a parasol-like roof which shades the entire building in summer. Keeping in view the special dignity of the judges, Le Corbusier created a special entrance for them through a high portico resting on three giant pylons painted in bright colors. Juxtaposed between the main courtroom of the Chief of Justice and 8 smaller courts is a great entrance hall. Its scale, especially the height, is experienced most intensely while walking up the ramp. The symbolism providing an umbrella of shelter of law to the ordinary citizen is most vividly manifested here. We could say that this building is modern because of the simplicity of its form, the use of less ornamentation, and the function as a primary concern.
The Villa Savoie is considered by many to be the seminal work of the Swiss architect Le Corbusier. Situated at a Poissy outside of Paris, it is one of the most recognizable architectural presentations of the international style. Construction was substantially completed in 1929. The house was emblematic of Le Corbusier work in that it addressed the 5 points. His basic tenets of a new aesthetic of architecture constructed in reinforced concrete. The pilotis, or ground-level supporting columns, elevate the building from the damp earth, allowing the garden to flow beneath. A flat-roof terrace reclaims the area of the building site for domestic purposes, including a garden area. The free plan, made possible by the elimination of load-bearing walls, consists of partitions placed where they are needed without regard for those on adjoining levels. Horizontal windows provide even illumination and ventilation, and freely designed facade, unconstrained by load-bearing considerations, consists of a thin skin of wall and windows. The Villa Savoie is an excellent example of Le Corbusier's machine for living ideal. It is no surprise that the house employs a number of mechanical devices for easing manual tasks. In the sunroom, for instance, the large windows crank open with a lever. In the kitchen, the cabinets efficiently slide open on either side. The kitchen is all utilitarian white, in contrast to the almost decadent master bathroom with its aqua-tiled bathtub. He also exposes radiators throughout the house. The house has an extreme spatial dynamism. The walls bulge and curve to push and pull at the spaces and entice the occupant from one room to the next. Views of the landscape are framed to draw the eye into the frame and beyond. Le Corbusier uses ramps to speed one from floor to floor. In one homemade film, he rides a bicycle around the roof. The building is a spatial playground. Based on the previous description, we can deduce that this house is a perfect example of modernism in Europe.